Yeah, so welcome to our world, our startup school for seniors world. And I remember meeting you when you and I were both part of a women's only group, which at the time felt really quite special, I have to say.
Yeah.
Back then, 6 years ago, to be in that group of women who were starting up businesses, some of whom are still around.
Yeah.
Not
Doing
very
different
many.
things.
With different things, yeah, but we were part of that group. And yeah, you were off chasing venture capital money, and I was off chasing angel investment, and you were a bit more successful at that than I was. And, although I did okay, I did okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, so welcome, Cal, to our thing. So yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why I've asked you to do this is because in startup school we see a lot of people who I know you deal with, who are people starting kitchen table businesses, people who have got hobbies or interests, or they're starting crafts, they're like designer makers. And this world of how to promote themselves and how to get it out there is just, it's the biggest challenge that I see them face. They just haven't got a clue. And the biggest thing they struggle with is Instagram, as an example. But just letting people know about what they're up to, I think they just find that really difficult, especially if they've come from like a corporate career where they've never really had to think about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think for some people it comes really naturally. And I think those people tend to be the people who see themselves. You know, I think some of us just know we're entrepreneurs because we don't see ourselves in that world of corporate, and there's almost no kind of restrictions on what you do. So I think for some people it feels natural to just go with the flow and tell the story of where they are and what they're doing. And I think if everybody can actually try and have that approach to business and starting business, then it becomes a lot easier. So I always say, because I mean, I'm self-taught, and I, you know, sometimes when I've had 3 business, well, I'm on my 3rd business. And, you know, when I first started doing what I do now, which is supporting small businesses to grow their business, I felt a bit like, oh, have I got the skill? I knew I was amazing at starting businesses because I knew I'd done it twice. And I thought, okay, if I can do it twice, then I must, you know, because I think the second time around, you do think, oh, God, could I do this again? But I know it's in my blood. So, but it was trying to sell myself to other people. You know, I understand how people feel because I felt that way then. It's when you're selling yourself, what Instagram is, because you can't sell a brand, you have to sell yourself. It's much trickier. So I think how I got over that was just to be really authentic and honest about what you're doing. So day one is, look, I've got this idea. I've no idea where it's going to go, but you know what, I'm going to give it a go. And I think that's probably the best approach, rather than saying, here's a brand I've launched, it's amazing, this is what we're going to do, and this is where we're going to be in, you know, 2 years time, 5 years time, 10 years. I think it just needs to be a bit more of a natural approach to it, to marketing.
Yeah, I mean, we always suggest to people, firstly, tell your story. What is it about? What got you into this, right? Why are you doing this? It's always Simon Sinek's big why, right? The why. And but I suspect that a lot of people do think, maybe, especially when they're a bit older, is my story interesting to anybody? Is anybody going to care about this, or is anybody going to be interested in any of this? And then of course they're surprised when people go, wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So I mean, what, you know, can you just, because we've almost skipped the your story,
Yeah.
how we met and your story. So yeah, just a little bit of background would be great.
Okay, all right. What background, as in, I mean, it's such a long background because I'm so old, but so I'll kind of give a background as to, you know, how I got into business. So I was 21, newly in London. All my friends had gone off to get jobs in the city. I tried to be a management consultant, but they turned me down, and I was just like, well, I'm obviously never going to go anywhere doing that. So I think deep down, I always knew. I think I had a quarter life crisis where I just thought, there's no way that for the rest of my life I can go and work for somebody. So what am I going to do? And I did have this kind of, oh my God, moments. And I did start working because I had to earn some money, and I was working at an advertising agency, and I just didn't fit. It just didn't feel right to me. It didn't feel natural to me. So, but I had to make money, and at the time I was in London and I was young and I wanted to go out all the time, and I couldn't afford to go out. And, you know, when I did go out, everyone had amazing clothes and looked fabulous. And, you know, and I just, you know, I started going out to secondhand shops, and I always made my own clothes anyway, but that was when I started doing it more in London, because I was really inspired by all these fancy people around. And so I started buying size 18 dresses, and I was a stick at the time. I used to make about 4 dresses out of one dress. So that's how I literally started making clothes, and people would ask me, where do you get that? And I'd sell it. And that's how my first business started. So it wasn't a plan. It was just something that happened to me because of where I was. I didn't want to do something, and I was looking for a way out, and the way out presented itself to me. And that happened again when that business was successful. I had it for 12 years. I went on to start doing wholesale. I had a showroom in the West End. I had a concession in Topshop for 8 years. I had 2 agents, and, you know, I was selling all over the world. But it came to an end when there was a recession in 2008. And, you know, Zara had started moving into the country, and, you know, we had Primark had become like Primani, that was so popular. People used to go around going, oh look, it was £10, and I'm really proud of it. So, you know, my business really suffered then, but but I just put all my money into trying to keep it alive, and eventually it just died. But at the time that it was dying, I'd already started to weave my way into my next business, and again, it was by accident. It was just by accident, and I was a bit older. I started, you know, that whole throwaway culture of buying a £10 dress had just started to, you know, make me realize that actually people buy things in a really, you know, it's in a really unsustainable way. And so then I launched Buy My Wardrobe, which is a high-end designer fashion recycling resale platform, an online platform. And that's when I ended up in the startup world, so mad startup. And I, you know, that was probably my biggest lesson in life. Those 5 years that I spent in I grew so much. And I think, I mean, obviously I did during that younger period as well, but, like, you know, when I was younger in my 20s, and then I had so much energy, and I just believed everything was possible. So as you get older, that belief in anything is possible does kind of get diluted, because you realize that, you know, there are some things that are against you. And so, but I still had that, you know, element of, you know, well, I can, you know, Buy My Wardrobe is going to be the next big thing, you know, and you have to have that. You have to have that mentality in order to have a startup. It's very different if you have a business that is going to be a lifestyle business to having a startup, because if you don't have that big vision, then you'll never get there. So I think the important thing is knowing what it is that you want at the beginning. Is it a lifestyle business, or is it a startup? And they're two very different things. And I've lost where I was going now, but that's kind of
we met when you did Buy My Wardrobe, and obviously you did raise venture capital money, and you did, you know, you did that whole startup journey. And it's interesting that you say that between startup and lifestyle business, because I think we have used and adopted the word startup to mean any business that literally is starting up. But of course, the dictionary definition, and I think a lot of people would say that the definition that most people associate with startups is tech businesses, businesses that have the ability to scale to a global level and reach millions and billions of pounds. But, you know, in the modern context that we're using it could be a lifestyle business, or it could be a fast scaling business. But you're right. You kind of have to know at the beginning what it is and why it is that you're doing it. And when you did Buy My Wardrobe, were you thinking in your head, this is going to be massive, this is going to be global? Or did you start out very much a bit like your fashion business, going, well, I'm really enjoying this and let's see where it goes?
Yeah. Well, I think I had that whole startup thing not started, you know, I probably would have just continued in here's a business, I'm going to, you know, not scale it, just grow it. I think that's what my mentality would have been. But there was a lot of, this whole startup culture had just begun and people were talking about it, and I'd never heard of venture capital. In fact, I didn't know what a VC was. And I've got a story to tell about that. So when I had Kal di Paola, which was my fashion label, and it was growing, organically, I grew it organically, and I had about 4 employees, and I'm doing good business. I had a good lifestyle, I had it was great. And I remember winning an award because Victoria Beckham had won one of my tops once. And so I'd been in the Evening Standard and I'd won an award. And so I'd got quite a lot of press out of that. And so one day I had a phone call, and the person on the other side said, oh, they're from a private equity firm and they were interested in talking to me about it. And I didn't know what that meant. And I said, oh, I don't need it, thanks. And I hung up. So, and so there wasn't an awareness. So I didn't have, and that really, what that really made me realize is that actually every young person who starts a business should have a mentor, because I should have known. Somebody should have been holding my hand at that point saying, look, Kal, you've got this really fast growing business and potentially you're going to need some extra support to get, because what I wanted to do was just build a business that I loved. I don't think that I'm in love with making money. I think I'm in love with doing what I love. But I am a business person in that I love to grow things. I love to take something and build it. And maybe I'm the typical definition of an entrepreneur, where I like to do the beginning part. I love to launch, which is why I'm doing what I do now. I'm helping other people to launch theirs, because it is the part of it that I really, really enjoy. I don't enjoy I could never open, having a shop where you go in every single day at 9 o'clock, open the door, go in, do the same thing day in, day out. To me, that's, that is, that's not for me, I don't think. There has to be something more to it. And, so I know that if I did have a shop, I'd probably be thinking, how am I going to have 20 shops? And, so there is, you have a personality that then your business develops in the way that you want to live and achieve, I guess. I think it's about what you want to achieve. But I think, equally, I just love the idea of just having one shop that makes a good amount of income. You go home at the end of the day and you feed yourself and your family, and you and that's lovely. But somehow I can't, and I can't do it. Just end up getting lost on the path of, where can we go with this? What else can I open? So that's illness, maybe even.
I think that's about getting older as well, though, isn't it? It's about recognizing what you like and what you don't like. And I think there's a lot of people similar to yourself who, I'm certainly one of them, who I love coming up with ideas, and I love thinking, okay, where can this go? And when it gets to, but I'm always thinking about what's the next step before I've even been successful at the one previously. Yeah. already way ahead of that, thinking, yep, that was good, but let's see where we can go next. Let's see where we drive people crazy.
Because we like a challenge. Nothing, when it's not big enough. Like now I'm struggling with the idea that I need something to be working towards. And so, I like having clients who have got big dreams, or even, have something that they think they can't do, but I know that they can do it. And, so it's about using that energy to build. I think it's about building, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So your West 3 Women, just what is it? What is it?
So what I've ended up doing, so when I sold Buy My Wardrobe in 2000, I actually got sick. I was working so hard, I got sick. I got pneumonia and I had to sit on my sofa for a month. And which I've never, hadn't done that for ever, I think, apart from when I was pregnant. And but actually it gave me some time to think about what I wanted to do next. And I had, at the time, my son was 8, and I was picking him up from school and walking him. We'd go off to the coffee shop, we'd have conversations, which I wasn't having before because I was always on my laptop and running around all the time. And he was getting to the age where he actually wanted to sit and converse. So I decided I wanted to do what I wanted to have a small business that I could have locally, that I went in the morning and opened the door, and that was what the idea was. But that never actually happened, because in the midst of trying to research my area, Acton, where I live, and what the potential was, I realized that people in the area needed help to market themselves, because walking up and down the high street, I would ask people, how's business, because I was thinking of getting something along the Churchville Road, which is where I live. And everyone was like, oh, it's so bad, there's no footfall, you know. And I was like, well, do you ever do any marketing? And they're just kind of, I mean, one or two do, but you know, majority of them kind of like give you that look and they say, what's that, you know. So because I think a lot of storefronts businesses think that having a storefront is enough and that they don't need to drive footfall, and it's a mistake that a lot of storefronts make. And so that's where I then started to that's what I started to work in. I started to work with small businesses who just needed that extra support to build awareness of what they do. And I helped a shop to launch, and that kind of led to more business with and I actually set up a local website and a network and all sorts of other initiatives, because what I found was that small businesses, my initial idea was to support them through retainer marketing. They don't have the money. So they don't have the money to spend. And so there's nothing I can do for them. So what I ended up doing was setting up a local website and social media feed, so that actually I could then do it as a, you know, for everyone. So actually building the presence of the street and the area and then the shops within it. And so it gives them the opportunity to be featured rather than spend lots of money on my services. They can just spend a little bit of money and they get, you know, and they get that awareness. And then it also, so it's developed my interest in shop local and how to support our local economy, because that's what I've then essentially got really, really interested in is how to support 15-minute neighborhoods is what they're calling it now, 20-minute cities or whatever it is, and how to support that, because I think that isn't there. Those, you know, that support for small businesses just isn't there. You know, they're kind of doing it on their own, and like you say, when they're busy doing their day-to-day, Instagram goes out the window, and you know, and you've got to be on it to be able to do it well. So yeah, that's what I'm doing now. So it's almost like a network for small businesses.
Yeah, it's a really excellent idea. And I think during the pandemic as well, people have become so focused on their local area and in trying to keep their local businesses alive, because I think everybody's really aware of how much they're struggling. You know, we've got a guy around the corner who's a little tiny pizza shop, who's got a few tables, and he surprisingly has prospered during lockdown because he found, much to his surprise, that the local people were willing to get takeaways from him. He never really promoted his business as a takeaway business. It was very much a local restaurant where he wouldn't deliver, but people could just come and pick up a pizza if they wanted to. Mm-hmm. And then of course, when lockdown occurred, that wasn't, you know, he couldn't stay open. And so he started just doing pizza, and he said actually the pizza business was so successful that he realized that he'd been busting his gut to do everything, and he could just open at 4:00 in the afternoon and just do pizzas and make the same amount of money. But it was because he built up the local network, and it's because we wanted to keep him open, and because we really, you know, like him as a person, and we wanted to support him. And I've just done loads just on social media and stuff, because like you said, he's pretty useless at that. But I think there is an opportunity for lots of these sorts of networks, because certainly we're delivering to Hammersmith and Fulham this course at the moment, in Camden maybe has a bit more presence because of the market and because of the footfall. But, you know, I suspect that Hammersmith does struggle a bit more with that because of the fact that it's not a destination in the same way that some other parts of London are destinations where, you know, they may not have to do so much marketing. Yeah. But I think, you know, as you said, what we see all the time is that people are frightened of marketing because it feels like a big thing to them. So, I mean, what, you know, as an example, besides so you're doing the website, you're doing the Instagram, is it now moving on to online businesses within the neighborhood as well? Or is it still very much focused on physical businesses?
So, yeah, no, it's also, so it's a combination of so any small business, so have the opportunity to get exposure through the networks. So, and it's, and so some of these small businesses probably had never before thought of acting as their customer base. And I think and that's the thing, if people don't, and also a lot of small businesses make that mistake of not being part of the community, or, so it's, and like you say, now it's, people really want to support local, and they want to be able to support whatever it is that you put out there. But if you don't put it out there, they're not going to know what you're doing. And I think so marketing has become really, really important during lockdown, because people are at home and they're more aware of their surroundings and what's happening on their high street, and they want their high street to be somewhere they can walk to and have everything available. So so there's two sides to it. The businesses themselves need to understand their customer. What is it that they want? What do they, and then when they deliver it, it can't be to everybody. Like your pizza guy, he will have an audience that is going to be his target audience, and he needs to speak to that audience. And when people get specific about who they are speaking to, that's when they start to build more of a community around their product. And I think that has to happen before you think about starting a business, is who is my community? Who are the people that I want to serve? Because it's not everybody. Like, I think I saw a post on one of our local community websites, and someone had posted, and you've got to be careful about who your brand ambassadors are. Someone had posted, there's this new shop that's open, and someone who follows him said, well, is it cheap? Because that's what they're looking for. So and it's that whole kind of thing about know who you're marketing to, know who your customer is, know who you want as your brand ambassadors in the local area. Get them to spread the word about you, because when other people talk about you, it's so much more effective than when you're constantly saying, come and buy my pizza 2 for 1. You need other people to talk about you, and the only way to do that is to give them the information to be able to do it. And I think that's really key for local, and that's what I found as I was doing my research into trying to open something locally, was that there's no one here that would ever be able to talk about me. So I'd have to build the networks myself. We didn't have a local newspaper or a local social media. There's no bloggers in Acton here, because obviously they're all in Hackney and Brixton and in exciting places. So that, there isn't anyone that you could feed out and say, can you talk about my product, or, if I open. So it was literally starting from scratch. And I think Hammersmith and Fulham maybe have a bit more than Acton. There are people who support have feeds that support the local businesses, but it's about making it engaging. Like it's easy to just go around and take pictures of shops and post them, but if they're not engaging the people that you're talking to, it's not going to make any difference. And in the same way, a shop, a greengrocer can post about oranges and apples all day long, and if it's not engaging people, it's not going to make any difference to their sales.
Yeah, and I think that's true of small businesses and large businesses. I mean, what you've just said is what we preach constantly, which is, who is your customer? How do you talk to them? How do they want to be spoken to? Where is it? How can you reach them? And as you said, local, people often overlook local because they may think it's too small. They may think that, they don't know how to reach that market, and it's much easier to go just on social media and just blast off. And certainly one of the comments I remember somebody saying is, I've got a couple of hundred followers on Instagram. How do I speak to each of them?
Yeah.
And with genuinely thinking, God, there's 200 people there that I could potentially be selling to. And that is true. You could potentially be selling to 200 people, but, clearly it's about trying to articulate what it is you're doing in a way that you can say one thing that reaches those 200 people and gets them engaged, rather than individually messaging each of those 200 people. Although I suspect that would, as a strategy, if you have the time, that would work. That would be effective as well. But I think that the local thing is really super interesting, and it's something that we haven't really spoken about before. And it's really great to hear from somebody who's capitalizing on that and using it to help small businesses especially at this time where they're really, really struggling. So if you, I always throw this one out there because I just think, why not? And which is like, what are the 5 things that a small business can do if they've got a very small budget or no budget to just get themselves out there?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, their own customers are key. So their own customers can spread the word about them. So I think asking for referrals, that's one key thing that, you know, can really kind of increase your and focus on the customers that are selling, you know, that you're selling to, because they'll have friends like them. So that's one, referrals, get the referrals coming in. Get involved in community stuff, you know, like just, you know, not, and don't just sell to people. It's about being part of something, being part of a community, and people being aware of you, not just by something that you sell, but because you are the person behind your brand, and you're, you know, and you're part of the community. So that's probably 2. So that's, you know, that's kind of being your business, isn't it? It's being, you are your business, your brand, and so get yourself out there, not just, you know, it's not just about your the shop name, it's about you, the person. Then the branding, I think the branding is really key. And again, this is something that some, you know, shop fronts in general will have some kind of branding, whether it's color and logo over their shops. But I think branding is an important, in today's, you know, digital world and a really kind of visual world with Instagram and everything, it's your shop front and the way you present yourself is really key, because it's the difference between somebody walking past your shop and stopping and going in, and it's also the difference between someone coming and being a customer and someone taking a picture of your store and saying, you know, this is a great store. And so I think visual, you don't underestimate the power of something visual on your shop front. Or, you know, this is particularly for small businesses. Like, you know, for instance, we did a whole street art project in Acton to try and get people, and, you know, so it's increased the number of people who are posting about it. So that's really important. God, what else can they do? So, you know, this thing, often people will trial things and it didn't work for them. And so I think, you know, it's measuring what you do and how you do it. So if, for instance, you know, you're going to do loads of flying and it didn't work, is it because it wasn't, you know, flyers don't work, or is it because your flyer didn't work, or you fly the wrong place? So it's about doing things not all in one go. So rather than sending out 2,000 flyers to all your neighbors, send 100 to each of, or, you know, have 3 flyers and trial them and see what it is, that whether there's a message that resonates. So I think it's about not spending all your money in one go on marketing, but actually trialing things to see what it works, and being really clear about measuring what's happening. And then just once you get something that works, you can then increase it. And that it's not just flying, that could be digital ads as well. So any kind of marketing that people do, and I know that costs money, but you know, it could just be messages. It could be messages that they're trialing on a blackboard outside. It's about trialing. So there's got to be an element of trialing in marketing to get the thing that works. So what are we for? And you could have told me to have this prepared. I'm just kind of saying this off the top of my head. What else could small businesses do? They could partner up with, you know, partnerships are always great. So, you know, that is actually something that's really could open you up to a whole new audience. So if you have another business in your local area who sells something complementary, then partner up to either do an event or to do a newsletter, or, you know, and that's free, you know. So if you just promoting each other, it doesn't cost much to do that. And it can be online, it can be through your newsletters, it can be physically in your shop, having something that you both promote of each other's.
I think those are absolutely brilliant suggestions. And I'll probably even try and do like a little card after this that goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Excellent. Thank you so much. That is brilliant. And your website can be found where? Or so
I'm connected.com. That's a K instead of a CO. So it's connected, but spelt with a K. Connected.co.uk. Edit that out. I can't believe I just did that. So just write it over the top, connected.co.uk.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. That was
You're welcome. It's good to chat. Bye.
Bye.